Good evening, you're watching the main news on ATV. I'm Anne Reesom.
And I'm Heyling Chan. Here are tonight's top stories.
Premier Wen Jiabao tells CY Leung to do more in solving Hong Kong's social problems, while President Hu Jintao praises his performance.
Rush to apply for first batch of My Home Purchase Plan flats, but prices higher than private sector.
US closer to fiscal cliff as Republicans pull out of vote for plan to raise taxes. Premier Wen Jiabao has instructed Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying to do more to tackle social problems in Hong Kong, such as housing, poverty and unemployment.
President Hu Jintao, in contrast, praised Leung's performance, saying he and his government had done well to overcome challenges.
There was no mention of the political problems Leung faces at home over his illegal structure scandal. Day 2 of Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's first duty visit to Beijing was spent meeting the old guard. His first big meeting for the day was with Premier Wen Jiabao this morning, who had some words of advice for Hong Kong's embattled leader as he faces impeachment proceedings over his illegal structures scandal. In his opening remarks, Wen warned that the global financial crisis isn't over yet and could still take a turn for the worse. He said that's why Leung should focus on tackling 6 livelihood issues: unemployment, the cost of living, housing, poverty, the environment, and problems stemming from the city's ageing population. The Premier had some words of praise for Hong Kong people's hard work and proactiveness since the handover in facing various economic and social challenges. Wen said he believed the SAR is entering a new phase and that its people would remain united under the government's leadership. He also pledged Beijing's continuing backing for Hong Kong's autonomy under the one country, two systems principle. In response, the chief executive thanked Wen for his support for Hong Kong. Leung vowed to make a better future for the city with the help of his cabinet, civil service and the general public. The formal niceties were all reporters were allowed to hear before they had to leave the two leaders to their private talks. Politburo member Liu Yuandong and Beijing's point man on Hong Kong and Macau affairs Wang Guangya were also at the meeting. Late in the afternoon, it was President Hu Jintao's turn to meet Leung, the third chief executive he's worked with since the 1997 handover. While Premier Wen lectured the chief executive on what more he needs to do, President Hu gave him top marks for his performance. He acknowledged that Leung and his administration had faced a lot of challenges and that they had worked hard to overcome them. "You have worked well as a team," Hu said. The president went on to praise Leung for making livelihood issues his main priority. "You try very hard to tackle livelihood issues in Hong Kong, such as housing and poverty, so the central government supports and approves of your work," Hu added. The president also made it clear that the one country, two systems principle had many benefits for Hong Kong and the mainland, and as long as it was in place, the SAR would have a bright future. For his part, Leung said he was grateful for the support the central government has given Hong Kong. Yesterday, Leung got a similar assurance of backing from Vice President Xi Jinping, who's getting ready to take over as China's leader.
There was a big rush today to apply for the first batch of flats under the government's My Home Purchase Scheme, a former rent-to-buy project.
The flats are discounted at 30% of the market value, but property agents say buyers will end up paying more than private sector prices. ATV's Bo Leung reports.
Eager home buyers began queuing early this morning in Lok Fu, hoping to get a chance to buy a flat in Greenview Villa, a subsidised housing project in Tin Yi. They snapped up application forms, price lists and sales brochures at the offices of the Housing Society and the Housing Authority. There were extra long queues at the sales office in Zheng Sha Wan as potential homeowners could check 2 show flats, a 1-bedroom unit and another with 2 bedrooms. Thousands lined up today and many more booked online for the flats, which are expected to be completed in 2015. But only 988 flats are available for households with a monthly income of less than $40,000 or individuals earning no more than $25,000 a month. Greenville Villa is the first project under former Chief Executive Donald Tsang's My Home Purchase Plan, but the idea was to allow first-time buyers to own their own flats through a rent-to-buy scheme. However, his successor, Leung Chun-ying, decided that the flats should be sold at a discount rather than first being rented out to potential buyers. This woman, who was queuing for her children, said the apartments look as good as those in the private sector. I think the prices are reasonable with the discount, said this hopeful buyer. But this woman decided to opt out, saying the management fee is too high. Housing Secretary Anthony Cheung, who had a look at the flats, said it's up to the Housing Society to decide the management fees. While this is supposed to be subsidised housing for those who can't afford private sector prices, property agents say buyers will still end up paying more than they would for private housing. Greenville Villa is the first project to provide flat details in terms of saleable area only and not gross floor area, as is the misleading practice in the private sector.
Also, of course, we cannot just look at the face value of the price, because the Housing Society this time is expressing the price in terms of the usable space. Of course, for other sales projects now in the market, maybe sometimes they use different ways of presenting the prices. But of course, once the new legislation on first-hand sale of residential properties comes into effect at the end of April, then we expect a consistent and transparent way of presenting price information.
Asking prices for the Greenville Villa apartments, measuring between 420 and 700 square feet, range from $2.4 million to $5.1 million, representing a 30% discount on the market value. The average unit price is $6,510 per square foot. That values the project at $9,300 per saleable square foot, which is higher than most private units in the area. The saleable area is the size of the unit itself, including balconies, but excludes common spaces and bay windows. In June, legislators passed a law requiring developers to list details in terms of saleable area, not gross floor area, when selling new flats. The new rule takes effect next year. Bo Leung, ATV News.
An urban renewal authority project in Tai Kok Cho may have to be scrapped because one shop owner is holding out for higher compensation.
The authority's chairman, Barry Jung, has set a deadline for Monday to decide whether the plan should be abandoned. ATV's Edna Tse reports.
The redevelopment involves 4 lots of land on Pine Street and Oak Street in Tai Kok Cho, consisting of residential blocks and shops more than 40 years old. The Urban Renewal Authority says 80% of the owners of 3 lots have accepted its compensation offer. It's one of 3 redevelopment projects which will cost the authority $1.58 billion. The other 2 are in Sham Shui Po. Domestic owner-occupiers in the Tai Kok Cho project were offered between $9,197 and $10,238 per square foot of saleable area. But one shop owner in the 4th lot on Oak Street has refused to accept the amount offered, a move which could force the project to be abandoned if a deadline of midnight on Monday passes without an acceptance.
It's very disappointing if this project cannot proceed because of the objection of one owner.
Jung said the owner is being unreasonable for demanding several times more than what the authority is offering, but he hopes there'll be a change of mind.
Clearly, the wishes of the residents in this project are very clear. They want their buildings to be redeveloped. They want to use this opportunity to improve their living conditions.
Jung also supports a plan to refund developers their 15% buyer's stamp duty if they are able to complete reconstruction projects involving old buildings within 6 years of their purchase. The tax was imposed on non-resident and corporate buyers in a bid to ease property prices.
I understand the government's proposal is to start the 6-year period after a developer has acquired all of the interest in a project. So what we're talking about is that there will be 6 years for the developer to actually build, to complete construction of the buildings, which should be plenty of time to do so.
But speaking after a third meeting with government officials this afternoon, Real Estate Developers Association Chairman Stuart Leung disagreed. He said the government has underestimated the problems developers have to go through before they can get a refund. Leung also criticized the government for rejecting its recommendation that companies whose shareholders are permanent residents should be exempted from the buyer's stamp duty. Edna Tse, ATV News.
Overseas, Southeast Asian nations are urging India to play a greater role in countering China as tensions rise over disputed islands in the South China Sea.
The countries taking part in a summit in New Delhi stressed the need for freedom of navigation and stability in the region. A summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and India in New Delhi saw participating countries set their sights on a new strategic partnership that would bring closer cooperation. The focus is maritime security as nations underline the need for freedom of navigation. This comes at a time of tensions with Beijing because of competing territorial claims in the South China Sea, as smaller Southeast Asian countries try to counter the mainland's growing military might by bringing in India. Some of them called for a more decisive stance from India, which kept its reply diplomatic.
India and ASEAN nations should intensify their engagement for maritime security and safety, for freedom of navigation, and for peaceful settlement of maritime disputes in accordance with international law.
The South China Sea, which is potentially rich in oil and gas, has become a tense area lately, with countries such as Vietnam, the Philippines and Brunei contesting Beijing's claim to several islands. An ASEAN summit last month ended badly over China's assertiveness in the region, with participants failing to agree on a concluding joint statement. The Indian-ASEAN meetings also saw participants finalize a free trade agreement aimed at strengthening economic cooperation.
No rough edges left for us to address. The negotiations have been completed successfully. Now it's only the formalities that are left to do. I think the substantive part is over.
The pact is expected to boost regional trade to $100 billion a year by 2015. Also discussed at the summit was what ASEAN has been calling the Connectivity Master Plan, a proposal in which India will be joined to Southeast Asia by road.
There is also much potential in our work on connectivity, which we have recently embarked on together. This will not only bring our people closer together, but also expand our trade and business networks.
The agreements made at the summit highlight India's greater role in one of the fastest-growing parts of the world. This is 20 years after New Delhi launched its Look East diplomatic campaign to promote trade with a previously neglected region. The U.S. edged closer to economic disaster overnight after the Republicans scrapped a vote in Congress to raise taxes after there wasn't enough support for their plan.
That's left Americans in the lurch over Christmas, wondering whether they will be subjected to higher taxes and spending cuts in the new year. ATV's Ben O'Rourke reports.
In Peru, Mayan shamans perform rituals in a bid to ward off the end of the world, which according to their ancient calendar is expected today. In France, police are on alert in a village believers are said to be flocking to in the hope they can survive the apocalypse. But amid the hype about the doomsday prophecy, a less spectacular but more real disaster may be just round the corner.
We also have the economic fiscal cliff coming.
In Washington, politicians are preparing for the worst as talks to avert more economic doom and gloom appear to have stalled. Harsh tax increases and spending cuts that could push the US over the so-called fiscal cliff and back into recession will take effect at the end of the year if lawmakers don't agree on ways to reduce the deficit over the next 10 years.
We don't just have a fiscal cliff, we have a fiscal abyss in front of us. and that is the debt crisis that is on our horizon.
We're wasting valuable time. The Speaker should be engaged with the President of the United States in negotiations rather than having walked away from those negotiations with the President.
Republicans and Democrats still can't agree on taxes. The White House wants to raise taxes on household incomes above $400,000 a year, up from President Barack Obama's original proposal of $250,000. In an attempt to compromise, Republican House Speaker John Boehner proposed raising taxes of households earning over $1 million, something he called Plan B. But in a huge snub by his own party, he couldn't get enough support for it, so he scrapped the vote and said it's now up to Obama to work with Democrats in the Senate to solve the crisis.
We have a bill sitting at the desk in the Senate that protects all Americans from an increase in taxes. They could take up that bill sitting at the desk. They could pass it, they could amend it, and they could help move the process. But to date, they've done nothing.
The White House wasn't impressed with Boehner's move.
The Speaker and his lieutenants have spent days trying to twist arms and wrangle votes within their own conference. It's an exercise in Republican vote counting that will not result in anything for the American people. It cannot pass the Senate. The President would veto it if it got to his desk.
With the countdown to disaster ticking away and Boehner apparently washing his hands of the matter, analysts say there's still time for him to compromise.
Both sides want to get the best deal possible for their side, but both sides know that if they don't come up with a deal, there will be incredible pressure put upon them by the American people, by every business and every taxpayer in the United States. And because of that, I think they will come to a deal.
If there is no pre-Christmas deal, senators will return to work on the 27th and resume the fight for one. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
Still to come on ATV's main news tonight. Millions duped by fake video of eagles snatching toddler from the ground.
The Mayan calendar ends, but maybe not with a bang, as doomsday prophets predicted.
The joy, the anticipation. Join them to welcome Christmas Day. Christmas Eve candlelight celebration. Monday night at 11:20. They are considered the most creative generation in Taiwan, but society labels them as the strawberry generation, which can only flourish in a safe environment. So are these young entrepreneurs strong enough to revolutionize Taiwan? All About documentary, Asian Century, Thursday night at 10:05. Stay close to fresh K-pop from the hottest selling artists to the up-and-coming superstars. Keep in touch with the latest chart of the Korean pop music scene on Samsung Digital Special. Pops in Seoul, Thursday at 6:25 p.m. From a shy little princess to a love-struck teenager to the monarch who's reigned for 60 years. Queen Elizabeth II remains the centre of the ever-changing world. Her life story will keep fascinating us in years to come, and her name is going to last forever. All About documentary, The Queen, a monarch for all seasons. Saturday night at 10.
而家咁逼仄，幾時至有好啲嘅居住環境呢？
可唔可以有多啲照顧，唔使咁辛苦呢？
競爭咁大，會唔會有多啲工作機會呢？
點可以喺新與舊之間取得平衡呢？
Do you want a better Hong Kong? We'd like to hear your opinions during the public consultation for the policy address and the budget. Let's work together for a better Hong Kong.
Keeping them honest is what we do. So many questions out there, someone has to ask. Face-to-face challenge. And all the hottest topics are only on Newsline. Every Sunday night at 8.
Quicksure, all your insurance needs. Call 3113 2112 or visit the site today.
A YouTube video of an eagle snatching a toddler off the ground in Montreal has turned out to be a fake.
The clip received more than 18 million hits as it shocked viewers around the world.
At first glance, this video may look like one of the most startling moments of man versus nature ever caught on camera. Yes, that golden eagle just picked a toddler off the ground in Montreal's Mont-Royal Park. It has received more than 18 million hits on the video-sharing website YouTube.
I all woke up and say, no way, it's like on front page YouTube, it's like in all the journal, the press, so it was kind of a big shock for all of us.
What may come as a shock, or not, for all of you, is that it's fake. The video was created by Archambault and 3 fellow students at Centre NAD, a design school in Montreal, for a workshop. The eagle and the toddler were created in 3D animation and integrated into the clip afterwards.
Animal and baby video on YouTube are super popular, so we thought, like, what can we do to a baby that is incredible? People will say, oh my God, can this happen?
It's probably safe to say the hoax has passed their design workshop.
It's time now for sports with Brittyn Clennett.
And what's been happening in football?
Well, Yaya Toure has been named Africa's best footballer. It's the second year in a row that the Manchester City midfielder has won the honour. There's also good news for Toure's former club, Barcelona, whose head coach is recovering from surgery.
Tito Vilanova spent the night at this hospital in Barcelona after undergoing surgery on his saliva gland as he begins his second fight against cancer. Relieved Barca skipper Carles Puyol said the head coach's operation had been a success. His fighting spirit gives us strength, Puyol said, adding that Vilanova is looking forward to resuming his coaching duties. But first, the 44-year-old will have to undergo 6 weeks of chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Barcelona fans are worried that his prolonged absence may affect the performance of their side, who sit atop the Spanish Premier League table with 15 wins from 16 games. But Barca are a comfortable 9 points clear of second-place Atletico Madrid, and there's only one more match before footballers in Spain take a 2-week winter break. Former Barcelona midfielder Yaya Toure has been crowned African Player of the Year for the second time in a row. The Ivorian, who currently plies his trade for English champions Manchester City, fended off fierce competition from compatriot and former Chelsea striker Didier Drogba, who was second. Cameroon's Alex Song of Barcelona was third. Toure helped Ivory Coast reach the African Nations Cup final against Zambia in February and was the driving force behind Manchester City's title-winning campaign in the English Premiership last season. Real Madrid legends Ronaldo and Zinedine Zidane went head-to-head in their annual charity match in Brazil. Ronaldo's side clinched a 3-2 victory over a French team, courtesy of a late winner by Leandro Damião. The stars who graced the pitch in Porto Alegre for the match in aid of an anti-poverty group also included Neymar, Zico and Deco.
Moving on from sports, there's some confusion over the exact time the world will end today. That is, if an interpretation of an ancient Mayan calendar is to be believed. Some say the end should have taken place at 7:11 p.m. Others are giving it to midnight. But despite the confusion, the rumour has sparked hype and anxiety. Descendants of the ancient Maya in Guatemala are taking no chances when it comes to dire predictions that the world will end today. The doomsday theory is based on an interpretation of the 5,125-year Mayan calendar, which is said to finish one of its cycles today. But experts have debunked the theory, pointing out that the date actually marks the start of a new era in the calendar. The modern-day Mayans have been gathering at the cradle of their ancient civilization to perform rituals ahead of the deadline. Tourists and believers in the doomsday prophecy have been lapping it up at spiritual sites across the world.
I think it's funny. In a way, we thought it was the end of the world would be the 12th of December, but it didn't happen. So we thought that it would be the 21st of December. But now that we're here, people are reassuring us that it's not the end of the world.
Actually, I think it's a bit crazy to believe that the world's going to end in one day or in a moment. But we are just here to have fun.
Social media networks have exploded with doomsday-related jokes, banter and parodies, but a global poll by Reuters news agency suggests we may be slightly more anxious than we're letting on. It found that 1 in every 10 people have vague fears about the prophecy. One of the doomsday theories is that the planets in our solar system will align on winter solstice, which also happens to be today, in a way that will impact Earth.
We are water. Our bodies are over 75%, and the Earth is covered in over 75% water. So my understanding of what's happening at this time with the planetary alignment is it's a frequency type of thing. This is why the Mayans built the pyramids.
However, US space agency NASA were quick to shut that down. It said there is no evidence suggesting there will be any planetary alignments in the next few decades. Others blame Hollywood's disaster movies for helping to convince people that Earth's time is running out. Some are cashing in on the opportunity. That's certainly the case for hotel owners in the small French village of Bougerat, which is said to be a safe haven from the apocalypse. Police have deployed an extra 100 officers to cope with the expected rush for survival. Here in Hong Kong, restaurants and bars aim at making a killing, with some charging a couple of $1,000s for last suppers. But they may have a hard time convincing locals to splash the cash, after a feng shui master said today is actually a lucky day and nothing earth-shattering will happen.
A look at the weather before we go. It was mainly cloudy with sunny intervals today. Temperatures ranged from 18.9 to 22.8 degrees and the relative humidity was between 84 and 91%. Winds were moderate, coming in from the east. Checking on the UV index now, the maximum recorded for the day was 5 and tomorrow's UV reading will be around 4. Let's take a look at the weather around the region. A cold front over inner Guangdong is moving towards the south gradually. It will reach the coastal areas tonight. And now on to the satellite images. A broad band of clouds is covering southern China. Let's check out the weather for the next few days. Cloudy with 1 or 2 patches of rain tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 13 and 20 degrees. Cloudy and misty on Sunday with a top temperature of 16 degrees. Expect chilly weather heading into next week. Now for tomorrow's air pollution levels. General stations will be medium to high at 45 to 65 and roadside pollution levels will be high at 60 to 85. Finally, here's the weather around the world.
That's the main news for Friday night. Edna Zeb will be back with an update in an hour. I'm Heyling Chan.
I'm Brittyn Clennett. And I'm Anne-Marie Sim. Thanks for watching ATV. Have a great weekend. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, check in current news, people and politics. Andre Rieu's Christmas is all about tradition and sharing his passion with all of you. Spend a magical night with the Dutch musical genius in his castle. Enjoy the holiday like never before. Home for Christmas, tonight at 8:30.
Reports directly from the heart of Europe. Every week, business insiders and analysts keep you at the forefront of current economic developments. Check in current news, made in Germany, every Saturday night at 8.
This Saturday, get extra amusement from our fabulous Korean Hour. Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation Special, Korean Hour, You Are My Destiny. Saturday afternoon at 5:30. They can drive you nuts. From the most powerful roaring on Earth to the sexiest bodies you will ever see. They're surely every man's dream. Drive It, every Monday evening at 6:55. From the best-selling American author of more than 50 books, Dr. Stanley has spread his messages across many countries to heal people's souls. Learn to control your life. Don't be afraid. In Touch with Dr. Charles Stanley, every Sunday afternoon at 2. Current events, controversial issues, in-depth accounts of the latest news and happenings that impact us all. Get to the heart of the matter. Get real with Inside Story, Tuesday night at 6:55. Awesome is just the understatement of the year if you're talking about the two most gifted detectives in Santa Barbara. One of the hottest detective dramas in the United States. Funny.
Not you, I'm gonna clean it up.
Extraordinary. And hardly predictable. Mega hit 900, Psych. Tonight at 9.
A very warm welcome to People in Politics, coming to you from DW in the heart of Berlin. My name's Christopher Springate. These are our top stories this week. Policymakers lock horns over the Swiss bank accounts of German tax dodgers. Germany's universities scramble to cope with a record number of students. And the brave march to Berlin that's breathed fresh life into the debate on asylum. Swiss bank secrecy has long been a source of tension in Germany. German tax dodgers have stashed away millions of untaxed euros in Swiss bank accounts. So last